Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, having a great start to your weekend. Got you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for today, but we're also going to spend a lot of time on what potentially could happen next week, as I'm expecting not just one system, but the potential for two systems really between now and this time next week. Around this time next week, we could be dealing with that second system. So there's a lot going on. So I think it's important to begin to focus in on what's going to happen next week for sure in as much detail as we possibly can. We are now in range of these short range models for the severe weather threat for tomorrow. The good news is I don't think the tornado threat's going to be super high, but the bad news is I do think the damaging wind threat will be pretty elevated. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the latest information for you folks in the Northeast and areas of the upper Midwest as far as winter weather. And then we'll talk about that second system. That second system could potentially bring some winter weather maybe a little bit further south, and we'll talk about how the models are agreeing, and some places they're agreeing to the fact there's going to be a second system. They're disagreeing on who's going to see snow, who's just going to see rain, who can maybe just see some severe weather. So we'll talk about that. I'll kind of open up some tabs on the fly because as I'm talking right now, I'm thinking that I just missed. I certainly missed pulling up a tab that I wanted to pull up. But anyways, we're going to give you guys some good information in this video, and we'll do it again tonight. But we're going to get very detailed this morning, a little bit more detail we normally do in our morning videos. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. It goes a long way. I'm on a mission to hit 40K, and hopefully I'll do it maybe by the end of March. It's a big goal of mine, and then we'll try to get to 50K by the end of the year. So thank you all for the amazing support. It's really been awesome picking up a lot of subscribers from different areas of the country, as the Southeast has just been really quiet this winter. So I haven't really been able to reel in a winter storm for us in the Southeast, but we've been able to grow the channel in other areas of the country, so that's been really cool. But if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, you know the deal. Please put in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's take a look at watches, warnings, advisories out here. You already got high wind watches and just wind alerts in general in front of what is going to be a negatively tilted trough, a very strong low pressure that's going to eject across the plains. And then we have some winter weather advisories for today's weather. This is happening right now. There's no current winter weather advisories. Let's see if we can get an upgraded map. See, nothing's changed. No current winter weather advisories for this area of snow that will continue to work its way into New York State. And there will also be an area of maybe moderate snow that falls in the Delmarva area a little bit later this afternoon. We'll actually get a little bit closer to your region. Somebody might could get a sneaky inch of snow. Certainly possible. So we'll move past. It's very active out west. I know I got a couple loyal viewers that just watch my content. I never show you guys any love out there. In the future, that is the plan, guys. I know you got a lot going on weather-wise out there, but I want to be able to get detailed with you folks. I know I've explained this many times, and I just don't feel like that I can get detailed with, get detailed with you guys without making a 45-minute video, which includes you guys and what I've already covered out east. So that's why there's really just not enough time in the day when I work a full-time job. Obviously got my family and other things going on. I would like to get detailed with you guys instead of just skimming through it and say, hey, it's going to snow in the higher elevations, it's going to rain in the lower. But anyways, that's my reasoning for you folks out west who wonder why I just don't cover the west out much. But you see this spin right here, and I am going to attempt to pull this up, and I really hope it does something. And it does. It's working. That's great news. So this is our spin. This is our big system for next week. So this is going to continue to kind of dive this way and then move into the southwest. And then this low pressure is going to eject across the plains and eventually kind of work its way into this area of the Midwest and the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. And then a secondary low will try to develop off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast and deliver some snow up here for this portion of the country. This is going to create severe weather right into here, and then a big time area of a big line of damaging winds, obviously in the form of storms, is going to sweep across areas of the south central U.S. Okay, it's going to bring a lot of weather, going to bring a lot of strong winds in this area of the country, and even going to bring a severe weather threat for this area of the southern Appalachian Mountains and the Ohio Valley Mid-South regions. So there's a lot going on, but really it is this system right here. that's going to cause a lot of weather. And then there's going to be another system behind this that's not showing up yet just because, I mean, it hasn't really entered the picture of the lower 48. So we still got a lot to figure out about that second system. But we know that the first system is going to happen. I mean, it's right here. It's on the water vapor loop. You can see the spin coming. And this ridge continues to kind of dominate the pattern right here. So it'll be very warm in this portion of the country today, but there will be a little bit of a cold air damming kind of setup with a high pressure up here that will force a little bit cooler temperatures into the Carolinas. Some areas will be significantly colder, especially in North Carolina today, where you'll go from, what was it, the 70s, even close to the low 80s yesterday, to maybe just the 50s today. So it always stinks when that happens. And you know, here in South Carolina, I was up at, 5 a.m. this morning, and it was raining like crazy, and I have a lot of those fall, autumn leaves I still have to get up in my backyard that I'm very behind on, and they're now going to be waterlogged, so is what it is. But let's talk about the Southeast today. Some showers will continue to plague the Carolinas and Georgia, the Mid-Atlantic, West Virginia. The higher elevations could see a glaze of ice, maybe a little bit of snow. Showers will continue throughout the morning hours in areas of eastern Kentucky and almost all of Tennessee. This will continue, but as we're getting into this afternoon, they'll become less widespread. We'll talk about this area of snow up here. You see at the top of your screen here in a second for the Delmarva. But another area of showers will work its way through the southern Appalachian Mountains, but then they'll diminish very quickly. And then we'll still be dealing with a little bit of shower activity in the northern areas of the Deep South, Mid-South areas right here in northern Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi, maybe southern counties, the southern Cumberland Plateau areas, maybe some showers will continue. It'll be kind of a soggy day in the Southeast. I really think it will be. And then this will continue, and then we'll wake up tomorrow morning, still cloudy, kind of showery conditions across the Deep South. But moving forward here, temperatures will be kind of weird today, guys. It'll be much cooler in certain areas. It was much cooler yesterday compared to the day before yesterday, Thursday, for areas. But today, for example, in areas of Arkansas, just widespread 50s, maybe some 40s out there. Northern areas of Alabama, Mississippi, 50s. But if you go down to the southern sections of these states, 70s and 80s. Weird day in the Carolinas also, even in Georgia. Northern areas of Georgia, maybe the 50s and 60s. But you get down to southern areas of Georgia, the 80s. So kind of showing you this, and we'll talk about temperatures again here in a second. But this cold air damming that you see right here that's forcing cold air east of the Appalachian Mountains. Areas of South Carolina, the upstate could get into the 50s. The lower sections of the state maybe in the 70s. So I'm right here in the Midlands, hoping we can get well into the 60s today, maybe even break loose some of these clouds because I'm going to be out and about a lot today, but very cold up here. Typical just late February, kind of early March weather up here. But moving forward, we'll talk about the Northeast. This area of snow is moving through right now. In fact, we'll look at radar scope and what's going on. Snow falling in basically a lot of Pennsylvania. There's a little opening right here in central Pennsylvania. A little bit of flurry action going on in Pittsburgh, but snowing at a pretty moderate pace in northern Pennsylvania. And then a little bit of some winter weather around Dayton, Ohio, even around Cincinnati and just north of Cincinnati, Columbus, reporting a little bit of snow. But this will continue to kind of work its way into these areas a little bit later today. New York City will get a little bit of a flurry to light snow action. Could get a dusting of snow, but I'm really watching this area down here that could get maybe an area of accumulating snow. Let's go on and talk about that. So going forward here, this area of snow will continue to work its way. Like I said, it'll move through New York City a little bit later this morning. By the time some of you folks are watching this video, it'll already be moving in. And then there'll be, some light, maybe at times moderate snow that will be falling in all of southern New England, the interior Northeast. Not everybody will see it. But one thing we'll watch is this area down here. There's heavier precipitation on this little broken up two pieces of energy right here. Heavier precipitation, but typically where there's heavier precipitation, a lot of times there's warmer air, and you'll deal with that down here in the Delmarva. But you could get some heavier bursts of snow in Delaware, areas of eastern Maryland, southern sections of New Jersey a little bit later this afternoon. So these areas have been in the 70s and 80s, some this week. It's been pretty wild. But by the time you get into this evening, this will head on off the coast and it'll be done. But, we take a look at snowfall totals for today over the next, really between now and the next 18 hours. We'll actually go out to the next 24 hours. You could get a couple inches of snow throughout the morning and early afternoon hours in the interior sections of New York State, right in the middle, maybe a dusting throughout Pennsylvania. Let me know what you're seeing out here. But one thing I want you to see, this 1 inch mark in Delaware? We'll zone in on this area. Check this out. Delaware, somewhere in maybe central southern Delaware, maybe an inch of snow today. It's possible. You guys have not seen hardly any winter weather this year, except I think you guys had a little event about a month ago that gave you guys some Tracy mounts and dustings and maybe a few tenths of an inch of snow. But somebody could sneak an inch of snow in Delaware today, maybe eastern Maryland. We'll see what happens. Hopefully that's the case. South central U.S., you're dealing with that shower action this morning here in central Arkansas and northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma. This will continue, and we'll still continue to have a little bit of moisture just flying around North Texas, southern Oklahoma a little bit later this evening. Not a washout by any means. And then we'll get into tomorrow morning, and then we'll watch to see how far this area of moist air can surge northward into these areas and promote a severe weather threat. But pretty quiet conditions today for the south central U.S. It really is. Not a whole lot going on. North central U.S., some lingering snow. It's kind of heading out the Great Lakes region to southeast Canada. This will eventually move into the northeast, which is what we just talked about. And then the rest of the day today, pretty quiet. Chilly, quiet. Get all the way into Sunday morning. Not a whole lot going on. You guys are easy like Sunday morning as you're waking up to your Sunday morning. So not a lot going on. Today, temperatures today, really, it's not even that cold up here in the Midwest. Compared to average for this time of the year. Of course, the average highs are beginning to increase as we're getting later in the winter. But definitely most of the state of Wisconsin below freezing. Most of the state of Michigan below freezing, except for southern sections of Michigan down here near Detroit and just southern counties. Most of the state of Minnesota below freezing. But, you get into this area, the Ohio Valley, more typical late February, kind of early March conditions. Mid-South will stay chilly. Mississippi Valley pretty chilly. But once you start to get along this I-20 corridor point south, it begins to warm up substantially. There'll be a sharp cutoff in some of these deep south states today. There really will be, where 1 hour will make a big difference of 10 to 15 degrees of the temperature. So Florida continues to just bake. You guys have just went full on into late spring, early summer mode. So, and with a La Nina, of course, you can get a pretty stout March cold front sometimes, but with La Nina, you guys down here, I'm not saying you're smooth sailing to all the way to April now, but I don't see any cold fronts penetrating Florida. Probably the Panhandle of Florida, sure, but deep down and deep in southern sections of Florida, I don't know. I don't see it, but it could happen. It does happen sometimes, but. Severe weather threat. Okay, so for tomorrow, we have an enhanced risk of severe weather for this, relatively small enhanced region. This, covers areas of western Oklahoma and then areas of the Panhandle, eastern Panhandle of Texas, and areas of just North Texas. You got a slight risk around that. Extends all the way to north central areas of Kansas, all the way to Abilene, Texas, and everybody in between. This now includes Oklahoma City, Norman. The enhanced risk has shifted a little bit further west again. So it keeps tweaking back and forth a little bit. So now we can actually take a look at the percentages here. Tornado risk, you have a 5% risk. That's it right now, of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. And this is right where these storms will erupt. And there'll be a brief, I think, 1, 2, maybe 3 hour period of a tornado threat with this, as these storms initialize as a semi-discrete supercell mode, meaning they will have a brief opportunity to take advantage along the dry line points east into the moist sector to promote a tornado threat. And then it'll quickly turn into a damaging wind linear threat. That's why you have a 30% risk of damaging winds within 25 miles in any given location in this red area. Now, there will be a large hail threat, guys. There's also, in the same area, it's a very, very, just slightly smaller area, but you also have a pretty substantial hail threat with this, with dry air overcutting the atmosphere aloft. This is going to create a hail threat, 30% risk of hail pushing 1 inch or diameter higher within 25 miles in any given location in this red area. So there's going to be a hail potential tomorrow too. A lot of times in these deep south scenarios, you have kind of a lack of hail, especially in these early season modes. But this it's a different beast out here in the plains. So right now, not a huge tornado threat, but it could increase. So I want to remind you guys of that. We are in range of the HRRR model. We're starting this off around, what time frame is this? And I have to fix this up here. I don't know why it's doing this, but this is around early afternoon tomorrow. We're getting into the, let's see if we can switch this. No, I think we're good. Let's see. All right, we're good. So we're getting into kind of the early mid-afternoon time frame. You can already see a storm bubbling up right here in far eastern and northeastern areas of New Mexico. And quickly, this is just a 1 hour time frame. You go from like 4 to 5 p.m. to 3 to 4 p.m. to 4 to 5 p.m. and all of a sudden you get a big eruption of storms. These continue, but look how quickly they kind of congeal as you get into the late afternoon, early evening hours. We're getting into around dinner time, and this could still be a tornado threat as we're getting into about 6, 7, 8 p.m., give or take an hour, into areas of southwest Kansas, panhandle of Oklahoma, panhandle of Texas. This could still be a tornado threat inside this line of storms. You could have embedded supercells with this, but this quickly turns into a widespread damaging wind threat all the way from Kansas to central Texas as we're getting into the late evening hours. This continues to blast through Oklahoma. This will slam Oklahoma City, Tulsa sometime, around 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., give or take an hour as always. And this will continue. And this only goes out to 48 hours, but you got to watch out for this. This is around the middle of the night, Sunday night. This will be producing damaging winds in areas of eastern Oklahoma in the middle of the night, eastern Kansas, entering Missouri and Arkansas. We'll get a little bit closer for you regions out here. Let's go to Oklahoma right here. And there's our timestamp. I was wondering where it was over here. The 12Z run is actually running right now, so this is a little bit some older information, but I don't think a whole lot's going to change. But here you go. Bang. Storms erupt around 4 p.m. Central time out here in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas and areas of southwest Kansas. These continue, and these are pretty intense storms, okay? I'll stop it right here. It's around 7 p.m., give or take an hour, and look at the pink showing up right here. These are going to be intense storms. Could be producing wind-driven hail, damaging winds, an embedded tornado threat in this, and these will be very significant, I really think. I think there'll be a hatch region as far as the damaging wind threat. Well, they'll issue probably a 10% hatch region where winds could push even more significant levels, maybe 65 knots or higher, which is 70 to 75 miles per hour, pushing hurricane force strength in some of these storms. So I really think this is going to be a pretty potent line of storms that moves through Oklahoma and Sunday evening into overnight Sunday into Monday morning, and also areas of Kansas and maybe areas of northern Texas too, but I don't think they'll be quite as intense down here, but could be intense. So moving forward here, we'll talk about kind of the winter weather side of this with this system. So here comes the same system creating all the severe weather havoc Sunday into Sunday night and Monday. These areas of storms will continue to move. This is a strong low pressure moving into Iowa. You got a 9 to 80 millibar low pressure as you're getting into Monday morning, moving through areas of Iowa. This will create, with the low pressure nearby, bringing warm air aloft, a freezing rain corridor right here in areas of Wisconsin, maybe Michigan again. So, as we're getting into Monday morning, we could be dealing with another winter storm for areas of northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan, UP of Michigan, and there could be a corridor of a mixed bag of precipitation, sleet, freezing rain. So we could have more freezing rain into this area. This continues, low pressure blast right through Chicago, maybe, potentially. Of course, we don't know exactly where it's going to go over, but this obviously means another rainstorm for you guys in Chicago. And as we're getting into Monday evening, we could have some severe weather down here also. Okay, and I didn't really pull that up, but there is a severe weather threat for our day 3. Let's see if it'll pull up here. Slight risk right here. This is shifted pretty far north compared to what it was yesterday, but this does include Cincinnati, almost as Indianapolis, and right in the heart of Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, slight risk. And then you have a marginal risk now into northern northeast portions of Tennessee. So I think this is really driven off a damaging wind threat. So there's going to be some ingredients for severe weather down here, but this continues to move into, you're still going to be dealing with snow. Upper Midwest, late Monday night, overnight Monday into Tuesday morning. And then this moves into the Northeast. And speaking of the Northeast, well, let's talk about how much snow could fall from this event in the upper Midwest. So this is just the first event. You guys could have multiple events as we get into next week, but the first event, Several inches of snow again for northern areas of Wisconsin. This is just a blend of all models. So not a forecast, but it literally blends all the model guidance together. And I think it's a great thing to look at. It keeps things respectable out here. But another half a foot snowfall storm up here in the UP of Michigan for you folks and northern areas of Michigan. But another thing we need to look at is this ice. Of course, I don't think the corridor of ice is going to be this broad from south to north, but it's just telling you that there is going to be icing just in general with this. And certain areas could get a solid 1/10 of an inch of ice from this. We just got to figure out who could get the most ice. And I really think it's going to be somewhere kind of in northern sections of Wisconsin, northern sections of Michigan, or maybe central areas of those states. It's kind of hard to completely figure out right now. But the Northeast will be a big story early next week. Really is. As we're getting into Monday about midday, this system begins to move into the Northeast. This will start off as probably a mixture of freezing rain, sleet in areas of northern Pennsylvania and to northeast Pennsylvania. This might start off as a solid burst of snow as we're getting into Monday evening. Remember, the time frame is still not nailed down with this. But I will tell you right off the dot before we show both the GFS and the Euro. The Euro is further south with the cold air. So it brings areas like New York City, northern New Jersey, Long Island, a winter storm. I would say winter storm criteria, winter weather for your overnight Monday into Tuesday time frame. And sure enough, here we go. As we're getting into the middle of the night, 1 a.m., give or take a few hours, Tuesday morning, you have very heavy snow moving into central northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, southern sections of New York State. This could be your biggest, I really think it will potentially be your biggest winter weather event of the winter, where you guys down here have not hardly got anything. But the Euro, much colder, has low pressure further south, has a nasty mixture of precipitation here in Pennsylvania, where a warm nose will really create mixing issues just in general. So we got to figure out the icing situation here in Pennsylvania and maybe New York State, heck, maybe even New York City, and maybe even to far coastal regions of southern New England. But we continue to move this up. We're getting into the wee hours of the morning, Tuesday morning. Heavy snow begins to take over the Hudson Valley, southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, western areas of Mass, and then you're waking up to a winter wonderland for your last day of February in Boston with moderate to heavy snow falling. But the Euro, kind of flatter. It brings heavier snow further south, so this would be a big event for Connecticut, Rhode Island, those coastal regions that haven't got much this year. Big event for Long Island. So if you really want a big snow, this is the latest 06Z Euro too, the latest one to come out, which actually only goes out 90 hours. So it's not going to actually show the entire duration of the event, but it's the latest information. And this continues. And this would be a big event for far southern sections of southern New England. I say big event, not like a nor'eastern where you get 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow, but your biggest snowstorm of the year, I can tell you that. And we'll take it all the way out to 90 hours out, and it's still snowing in the interior areas of the Northeast as we're getting into Tuesday evening. So we look at the GFS. GFS is a little warmer, brings the snow in. You immediately can tell a difference as we're getting into Monday afternoon. Just more rain in areas of Pennsylvania and more freezing rain a little bit further north. This would bring a pretty nasty winter storm mixture of everything in areas like Scranton, northeast, and northern sections of Pennsylvania, but a big thumping of snow moving in Monday evening for these sections of interior New York State. I really think places like Albany, New York will get hit by a pretty substantial winter storm with this potentially. But as I can tell, it's a much warmer storm. We're getting into a 9, 10, 11 p.m. Monday night. This is all sleet, maybe some freezing rain, maybe a little snow mix in New York State, New York City, Long Island. And you guys barely hang on to frozen precipitation, but this is not really a snow event based off the GFS for you folks in New York City. So there's big differences under 80 hours with this system between the Euro, which is colder, and the GFS, which is warmer. But this would bring, and it's basically because the low pressure is a little bit further north and just not as much cold air entrenched into the Northeast. But this would bring heavier winter weather a little bit further north in general. And we're getting into the middle of the night. I think it moves the system in a little bit quicker also. We're getting into the middle of the night, Monday night, into the morning hours of Tuesday. Heavy snow overspreading areas of southern New England. But as you can tell, you're getting more so of a sleet mixture in areas of Connecticut, Long Island, where as opposed to the Euro showing all snow for these sections with the entire event. Then we'll stop it here. This is for our Tuesday morning, the last morning of February. This is a pretty substantial winter storm for areas of southern New England hitting, but you got the mixture really close by, and you done switched to all rain as you're waking up Tuesday morning for New York City. But, for southern sections of New England, pretty hefty snowstorm. Not record-breaking or anything like that, but one of your biggest snowstorms of the year, especially for those southern sections that are closer to the I-95 corridor. And this continues all the way throughout the day, Tuesday. Still dealing with it, and, it's still snowing in the down east and southern areas of Maine and even areas of New Hampshire Wednesday morning, and then this pulls off. So it's interesting just from this first storm, because I say first because there's another one behind it that could affect the Northeast also. The blend of all models, which is going to stay conservative, says 4 to 5 inches of snow in Boston. I know you're thinking, you folks in Boston thinking, well, that's not a big event at all, Mitch, but for our standards, but it could be bigger. So this is keeping things conservative, and I think that's the right thing to do here, because we don't know how weak this wave is going to be or how strong it's going to be still yet, which is kind of sad this far out, but we need to get a little bit closer into the short range. New York City, it's kind of giving you guys about a half inch to an inch, but these interior areas right here of the Northeast, another hefty snow event. But we'll take a look at the European ensemble for this region, and we'll have to go out to the 06Z one, and we'll take it all the way out to about, Thursday morning, and it kind of agrees with the blend of all models. It's kind of dropped a little bit, and it's a colder scenario, but just not as heavy as snowfall. But like I said, for areas, this will be your heaviest snow of the year, especially for you folks in New York City and Long Island, if the European is correct and its ensemble shows accumulating snow for Long Island. New York City, a few inches of snow, and an appreciable event for southern New England, which is, I know I keep mentioning southern New England, but you guys, especially the farther south you get in southern sections of Connecticut and Rhode Island, you haven't received much snow this year, but this could be one of your bigger snows of the year, potentially. Now you look at the GFS ensembles, which kind of can get a little crazy sometimes. It still has areas further south of several inches of snow. Okay, even, gets down to New York City, 1 to 2 inches of snow, but it likes the interior areas of the Northeast a little bit more, with a solid, 6 to, 14-inch mean in certain areas of the interior Northeast. So we'll try to figure that out for you guys. So this is where I'm going to have to pull a couple things up on the fly. We're going to talk about the system behind this, which is going to garner a lot of attention, I think, as we get into early next week, especially for areas maybe in the Ohio Valley, maybe areas further south. So remember, everything I show you guys is not a forecast. Remember that. But this is the system we just talked about. This pulls out. Okay, I want to mention, as we get rid of this system midway through next week, through next work week, we have multiple other little pieces of energy. Here's a little piece of energy for Wednesday morning, flies through areas of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region, might bring another round of snow. Little pulses of energy flies around everywhere as we're getting into midway, late work week, getting into Thursday, big rain event for areas of the Southeast, Mid-South, Mid-Atlantic. This moves through. And then I think cold air is going to be by. There might be a boundary settling in across the Ohio Valley. The Euro shows, as we're getting into Friday morning, a big low pressure, pretty strong low pressure that begins to immediately cut across the deep south. There's enough cold air up top, based off the latest Euro, that as we're getting into Friday evening, you get snow breaking out over southwest and southern sections of West Virginia. And then this turns into a big pace bomb. Now, we've seen this story before a couple weeks ago that did not end up verifying. But low pressure flies across the eastern sections of the Carolinas as we're getting into late Friday night. And in the middle of the night, Friday night into Saturday, you got a big snowstorm showing up on the Euro for northern sections of VA, southwest VA, these higher elevations of North Carolina, and then Virginia. This continues. This turns into a snowstorm for Washington, D.C. for Saturday morning in the Delmarva area. So it's something we need to watch. We've seen this story before, and it has not verified, but this is what the Euro is showing for this system. Okay? So we look at the latest icon for this system. And we're going to do a couple things on the fly here because I want to pull up this, because I want to compare all the models for this second system. I cannot find the Canadian. Here it is. We'll take a look at the Canadian model and what this shows. Same kind of scenario, a lot of energy flying around. Then here comes this low pressure, bubbles up. There it is. There's that low pressure right here. Canadian 996 millibar low pressure Friday night. And this delivers a winter storm for Virginia and North Carolina, and even gets snow into upstate South Carolina. So this is not a forecast, but I'm telling you, this is the secondary system that is going to begin to garner a lot of attention as we get into early next week outside the first system. There's going to be some long videos. We're already up on 30 minutes with this video. There's going to be some long videos coming up, guys. I can already tell you. I'm already losing my breath just thinking about all this content we're going to have to pump out next week from this. But this moves in, and the Canadian wants to hit, areas in the mid-Atlantic to southeast with a winter storm. Okay, you look at the latest Icon. Icon's kind of a weird model that is not going to... We're not going to bring up the Icon. The Icon is very similar to... It's very similar to the Canadian model. Now, the GFS. What does the GFS show for this system? Okay, we're getting to Thursday, getting into Friday morning. Here it comes. Now the GFS is further north when the GFS was further south. So the Euro GFS is kind of flip-flopped. But this is for Friday afternoon. You got snow for you folks in the Quad States region into the Ohio Valley. This turns into a hefty snowstorm for Kentucky as we're getting into late Friday night. Ohio, interior northeast snow. And then this low pressure scoots off the coast of the northeast. And waking up Saturday morning to snow all the way from the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee all the way up to the down east areas of Maine. Pretty large, significant stripe of moderate to heavy snow. So there's a lot of different scenarios with this second system. There really is. And all I can tell you is if you look at the European ensemble, this is the first signal. And then here comes the second storm. You see how everything kind of jolts southwest? Picks up on that second signal, okay? And all of a sudden you have a snowfall mean down in West Virginia, into the mountains, even a mean down here in North Carolina and Tennessee. So there's some kind of signal there. You look at the GFS ensemble, and there's a signal down here too, but it's a little bit further north and west out here due to the fact that the GFS just takes it more of a northerly track. So got a lot to figure out. 32-minute video in the morning. We're rocking and rolling this morning. I got a lot to do. I got to get out of here, guys. God bless all y'all. I have you a video this evening. You guys have a great start to your weekend.